We are loaded with heavy debt. The situation in the country is such that a lot of the money that's collected, generated in terms of government revenues, is going towards paying debt. And there are those that have said this debt was as a result of a government that had an insatiable appetite for debt. And then those that say, if you look back at the amount of debt that was borrowed in those 10 years of the Uhuru administration, 6 trillion or thereabouts, do you see a corresponding development that the money was used into? Sitting back and looking back, do you feel that we actually, the administration of Ruto from 2013 to 2022, managed this economy well?
I was privileged to be a minister in that administration. And I served from the Ministry of Water and Irrigation to devolution to defense. And I would say that under President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto, we worked very, very well as a cabinet. Sometimes I get surprised when I listen to William Ruto speak. It's as if he's a stranger in Jerusalem. I mean, he was part of this administration throughout, the second in command. He never missed a single cabinet meeting. And he was very influential. In fact, at some point, there was this rumor that, a joke that, who used to drink a lot, and it was Ruto who was running government. So sometimes when I listen...
Was it true?
No, it was a rumor. I mean, it was a joke, but I can say it was a bad joke because President Uhuru Kenyatta was a very serious president. And today, those who are with us in that same government, because it was not an Uhuru government, it was a Uhuruto. We campaigned on that platform. We actually ran that government. They were equal partners. They shared almost half-half. And most of his closest allies now, who are with him in his administration, Kimani Ichung'wah was chair budget. So all these matters that we are talking about, he's aware of. And Adan Duale, his right-hand man also, was the majority leader. So we can't say it's Uhuru who did this and Ruto or Duale or Kimani Ichung'wah or Eugene Wamalwa did not. We did it together. Overall, I can say we delivered as a government. If you look at what was done, since the Indian coolies built the railway, we hadn't had even 1 single kilometer of new rail laid in this country. We are talking of a brand new SGR, almost 600 kilometers. We are talking of over 12,000 kilometers of a new tarmac. That is money. We are talking of a new phase of Nairobi. When you hear of Nairobi being one of the best cities in the world, today is a picture of the expressway, and you are talking of adding money to schools. I think we're giving about 12,000, and now it went to 22,000. As we are looking at how we can make basic education accessible, affordable, we contributed. And in fact, in Africa, we were celebrated as one of the few African countries to achieve 100% transition from primary to secondary. All these are achievements. When you look at the connectivity in terms of electricity in the rural areas, we were able to do quite a bit. So Uhuru, as a president, made his mark. You can say whatever you want about Uhuru Kenyatta. Of course, he borrowed. Those of us who are now accusing him, we said he will never borrow. Today, in the second year, they have borrowed more. In this period, they were saying they will never borrow. But the projects they are still commissioning today are Uhuru projects. We can't say there's anything we can see that they have done with the borrowing they're doing. We are seeing very high, extravagant spending. This is one area that we recommended they need to look at Bomas so that they manage their spending. You watched State House change this week. It's looking this way. Next week it's looking different. Cabro looking this way. Now we have billions going into renovation of a building when CDF Parents are going to school.
It's not being
MPs are
delivered.
up in arms. They need to give bursaries to students. And here you are, spending billions renovating a house that
The question is,
you barely stay.
Mheshimiwa,
So we're saying, Eric, we did our part. Yes, we borrowed. But 10 years of Uhuru, if you are to look at the achievements, we achieved more than other administrations.
was it worth 11 trillion shillings?
I think this money borrowed did not go to Ishaweri, to Uhuru's house. This money is in the projects I'm talking about. The dams we have built. Today, if you go to Kirinyaga, Thiba Dam, Eric, I just want to give an example. I was the minister for
Water and irrigation.
and
yes.
we have Thiba Dam that is going to transform this country. We have Thwake Dam that is almost complete in Ukambani that will create a new breadbasket in Ukambani. Last week, I was in Budalangi. The Lower Nzuya project, we're talking over 5 billion from the World Bank. I can tell you for the first time in over 20 years, when there was flooding in Tana River and everywhere, normally would have flooding, but Budalangi would be the first. The dikes we built under the Lower Nzuya, over 5 billion put in. Today, the people of Budalangi are happy. The Sigiri Bridge that was built. So we have infrastructure put in place that is unprecedented. And this costed money. The money was borrowed, yes, but the money was spent well. In this regime, money is being borrowed, but where is it going?
So what you're saying unequivocally
Yes.
is that the money that was borrowed in the 9 years of
Was
Uhuru
for
Kenyatta's
development.
presidency
Yes.
was for development, and it was prudently acquired, prudently utilized.
Correct, Eric.
That every shilling can be accounted for.
Correct, Eric.
In the about 7 trillion shillings that was borrowed then.
We borrowed to develop. It was not for consumption. That is what we did. And I think 5 years of this administration,
Yep.
people are going to be yearning, wishing Uhuru Kenyatta would come back. I'm telling you.
One of your friends, I'm sure, in the opposition now, Jimmy Wanjege, has been here a number of times. And one of his choruses is that what we have is odious debt. Debt that we should not be paying. Why? Because it wasn't properly acquired through the proper legal instruments, and it wasn't properly utilized through the proper legal instruments. Do you think that we have odious debt?
It is a matter that I've also heard the good senator of Busia talk about. And the thing, it should just be talk. It's a matter that can be challenged even in court if anyone has evidence that this is the position. I think we have channels through which that can be proven. But having served in this administration and also having served in the previous administration of Kibaki, I believe after the Nyayo era, the change of regime to Kibaki brought this country from ground zero. And the 10 years of Uhuru Kenyatta, we build on a firm foundation. And you might say anything you wish about Uhuru Kenyatta, but give it another 10 years. I think great leaders, like now we celebrate Kibaki after his death. We say, this is what Kibaki did. After 10 years, people will start comparing Ruto and Uhuru. They would wish Uhuru would come back again.
Do you think the government is capable of actually honoring these debt obligations?
We were told they are okay. In fact, by December, they said they will start paying in advance. I don't know what went wrong. Later on, they said, no, we're not able. We'll only pay a little interest. I don't know. Time will tell. The jury is still out on that. But other countries have defaulted. There's a possibility we would not wish to see our country default. And our colleagues in government, we wish them well. But the answer is not in overtaxing Kenyans, because there's only one level, a level to which you can tax your citizens. Then it becomes counterproductive. In fact, increasing taxes does not translate to increasing revenue. They're not meeting their targets because Kenyans are overtaxed. Investors are leaving this country, going to neighboring countries. We have a problem. They have to get to a point and just have a Damascus moment and see if they can stop. We can stop having this Zakayo, and we have Ruto back. But now he has transformed into a Zakayo who wants more and more taxes from everybody, even the little businesses. And now we're going to the farmers. I think in the pinch is being felt more in the urban areas where the working class is. But when we take that pinch down to the farm, that is when it's going to be felt.
The comparison that seems to be gaining traction is the comparison of the Ruto government with that of the Daniel Arap Moi government. But there's one similarity here that sometimes I think is looked at, discussed, but perhaps not given sufficient attention. And that is the influence of the Bretton Woods institutions and the demands they put on any government once they get their claws into your system and you start literally relying on them to help bail you. The terms on which they will then give you money and the stringent conditionalities, that is the word that came into being, that will be forced, not levied, forced upon you, are painful at the very, very least. One of the things that President Moi did, which was fairly brave, and Kibaki the same, at some point they said no to some of these things.
That's true.
And with the dire consequences. But, if you bring that into an economy like the one we have now, with the debts that were inherited and the debts that have since been added to, and then you put in the demands that these institutions put in, there is nothing they leave to chance. They tax anything and everything. What they insist that the country that they has sought the help, because we are the ones who seek that help, what they demand of you is almost inhuman, but that is what they do. This is not something that is rocket science. You just need to read about countries that these institutions have bailed out, and you look at the pain that these countries go through. So even as we blame the president and say he's putting on these measures, he is in bed with these institutions. And when these institutions get their claws in, it is an extremely painful process. Because everywhere we look, we're discussing this in an earlier hour, the government seems to have a problem meeting obligations internally. We're looking at schools, the promises that are made for capitation and funds that should go to schools. There's not a talk about delayed salaries, there's constant talk. Then there's this story of pending bills. It never seems to come to an end. So, if you simply look at these things and look at the frequency with which we're having these discussions, you can see that we actually do have a problem, and a genuine one. So when it comes to the obligations that are external, if internal obligations are a problem, what do you think about the external ones?
I think we have a situation, and I want to agree with you, because we say we are a sovereign nation.
Yes.
And we're independent and everything. But what is happening now when you hear IMF praising you, that you are their favorite customer or son, then there's a problem, because what you're saying is true. And Kibaki, there were times when he would draw the line. He wouldn't swallow all the conditionalities given. There were times when Uhuru had serious issues with the IMF lot, but he had some spine. There's a point to which he would say this and this we'll do, but this, no. Or this we can do later. But here we have a situation where we're swallowing everything, and it's also reflecting in our credentials, as being more of puppets of the West. And everything they throw at us, we say yes. We have this Haiti situation. We need 1,000, say yes. How much? Yes, we'll do it. We need this. There are issues that are also eroding our Pan-African credentials, which are impeccable, I can tell you, going back to the Jomo Kenyatta days. When you see roads like Makonnen Road, boys, these were people who actually were part of the Caribbean leadership in the days. They fought for our independence. And as we speak, there are issues they have with the West. And in an economy like ours, we are not able to, pay CDF, and we are sending 1,000 of our young people into harm's way, into a territory that has defeated America and the others. But because of the American dollars, say, yes, we are willing to take that. So there are issues that we are saying we are an IMF-run country. There must be a line we can draw. We can't swallow everything. We want GMO. We say yes. There are issues that
it points to some level of desperation.
Yes,
but then
I
just like
think
City has painted the picture, what would you do?
They say the beggar's knees are supple, but there's a point at which we can draw the line.
How do you draw the line, Mheshimiwa, when 70%, in some estimations, 78% of your revenue is going to paying back a debt? When you're only left with 12 bob to pay salaries, to send to counties, to do capitation and do all those other things, what do you do?
No, I'm saying that...
Because you're at a situation where all the debt, all the lavish borrowing and spending that was happening in the last 10 years is now maturing now. SGR maturity, Eurobond maturity, coming in another Eurobond will be maturing. So you have to pay and pay and pay. If you are the president, what would you do different with the kind of situation that you have, the kind of opportunities and potential that you have for raising internal revenues and the obligations that you have?
I think the answer does not lie in more and more taxes. Let's start from there.
Okay.
And all the experts who came to Bomas took us through. We had some international experts who gave us examples and scenarios in other countries that have overtaxed their citizenry to the level that the revenue started dropping, and the overtaxation does not translate into raising more and more revenues. I think that is one area that needs to be looked at, but also in terms of creating a conducive environment for investors. That is key, and what we are creating now is not conducive to the level where we are sending away and losing investors to other countries. That environment for investment is very, very important and key amongst the issues that are very precious to investors is the rule of law, matters corruption, and the sanctity of their titles and their investment. In a country where a former president's farm is raided in broad daylight, former prime minister's factories raided in broad daylight, then the president and the executive says we're not going to obey these court orders. We have the leader of majority, the legislative arm, also saying they're not going to. In this chaotic situation, we must just call everyone to order, get our country back together and working again. And these are some of the issues that we had very brilliant suggestions, and we are hoping. We also made our suggestions as Jubilee. If you look at that report, as Azimio, we made our recommendations on what needs to be done. And you could tell from the experts, whether they are from the government side or the opposition side, we were able to agree on the issues, on what needs to be done. What is lacking is really the will
to get it done.
To get it done, starting with corruption, because we are losing a lot of this money through corruption, and of course the overspending. If that can be managed, and all those were some of the recommendations made, and that's why I said it's not that everything that's in the article report is bad. There's some good recommendations, and we are hoping if those are carried, they can be able to help us get out of this hole. Yes.
About 8 minutes to the end of our conversation this morning, and I want to bring it back into politics and the sanity of our politics. You're a leader of a political party. We've said this before, even last year, that in the next 8 years or so, we are going to see a generational shift in the leadership of this country. We saw it in 2002 when some leaders that were there since independence left, and then it concluded with Mwai Kibaki leaving in 2012. And now we are seeing again, by 2032, those that have been in this generation of leadership will inevitably be exiting. And so we are looking into new crop of leaders, and those ones that have either been in the latter years of this generation, and those that will be new ones. Your party, the young new kid on the block, will be among those ones that, of course, are expected to be nurturing the new crop of leaders. Are you doing that?
Yes, we are, and we are preparing ourselves for 2027. When I took over the party leadership of my party, we also took over the as a flag bearer in the next presidential elections that will be in August 2027. And we're in the process now of preparing our party for that election. We've started with grassroots recruitment drives across the country, and we'll culminate in the national elections. That after the grassroots elections, national elections, we'll have an NDC now to ratify this position. And from there, we will be able to roll out. I believe we are going to see changes in the leadership of this country.
You should be able to
And I
sell
want to be
this
part of that
party,
change,
the
yes.
DAPK, as a national party
Yes.
that appeals to everybody and not a Western Kenya party,
Yes.
a Luya party, right?
I think that is what I'm doing. If you look at the young people that we are working with, I know that some of them, like PK, have some issues, but we want to see more young people coming forward to participate in this national political discourse. So that you remember when we started this journey way back in 2012, we came up with a generational change agenda. We were then young ministers in the Kibaki government with President Uhuru, who was then Minister for Finance. Ruto was Minister for Agriculture, and I was Minister for Justice. And we urged young Kenyans to come up and say the Lancaster generation has done their part, and we must then have the post-Uhuru generation to come up and take their responsibility. In fact, we went around the country. Remember this time I took my